Last time, when I'll just kind of lay a foundation here. Last time when we were building the metric sheet, um, something that I think is a best practice is to have a little configuration folder in your workspace just for all of your configuration files. You might have multiple metric sheets depending on how you lay it out. You might have a bunch of reports that don't need to be viewed outside of your dashboard. So I like to set up a dashboard configuration folder here, and a dashboard metrics or metadata or whatever people like to call them. And you can use it kind of just as a big area to collect all sorts of data. So I've built on this a little bit more since we last met, just to drive some more widgets today. But this is, it doesn't have to look pretty. You can arrange it a little bit. You can do a bit of color coding and sort things out just so it works for you. As long as there's a method to your own madness, I like to keep it all in one big messy sheet. Well, not too messy, but you don't have to keep it as visually appealing as some of the other tools you might be making in Smartsheet. So just a quick overview. You can do all those cross-sheet references. So you see anything in the curly brackets there is referencing another sheet to pull together some information into one centralized spot. And the main reason I like to do this is it just makes it easy when you're looking to update or configure your dashboard. You just have the one place where you know you need to update formulas or collect the data for your different widgets. Makes maintenance a little easier, especially when you need to make some documentation to hand it off to somebody else to maintain in the future. You can just give them this sheet and kind of explain how each of the little sections work. So most of my widgets are going to be driven either from a metric sheet like this or reports that are pulled off of various sheets or from the metric sheet itself, because you can drive your dashboard widgets from reports as well, like things like charts and stuff. I'm going to go into what I've called the dashboard hub here. This is kind of the first thing I wanted to show you all, is the idea of a dashboard hub. When people get into dashboards, you find that suddenly, oh wow, I have all this information. Your stakeholders come to you and say, well, if you can display this, can you display this? And can we get a dashboard for such and such? And it starts to get a little unruly with how to navigate through them all, because Smartsheet natively doesn't have a way to, I guess, drill down, as lots of people say. So you can't necessarily slice and dice actively on the dashboard the same way as maybe like Power BI and things like that. So what I like to often do is make a dashboard hub to give the feeling of drilling down into dashboards or navigating around without ever leaving the dashboard, and it feels like you just stayed in one. So I've just got some PNG clip art items up here, and I've turned all of these into buttons to make it feel like you're drilling into different dashboards. So I'm just going to open up the editor to show you that these are all just image widgets. So I've just downloaded some PNG images and used those here. And recently found out they have added some new features to image widgets too. So if you haven't made a dashboard in a while, you might not have seen these before, where you can actually choose to resize the images a little bit better. If you've had some issues with that in the past, they've added some new tools here, so you can choose to have margins or no margins and make your images fit a different way. So yeah, all I've done is added the image and made it clickable by using this widget behavior section. And some people seem to overlook that this is another feature on just about any widget, and it's really just what happens when you click it. So what I've done is made it so each of these buttons, when you click it, opens another Smartsheet item to give the impression that you're drilling in or navigating around the same kind of dashboard portal, when really it's just a link taking you to another dashboard. So I can show you what that looks like. You see how I have some color on the dashboard hub trying to indicate this is the one we're currently on. And if I click the financial metrics one, it changed. I just manually changed the colors when I set this up, so it gives the impression that it's going to highlight which one you're actually on. So as you click through them, it highlights the different title of that widget. That being said, another thing, if you haven't made a dashboard in a little while, that they've added is custom colors. So instead of just having your standard, 8 rows of colors that you can pick some different shades from, they've actually have a custom color builder in here. So if you have some corporate branding or colors you like, lots of companies have specific guidelines on branding, so reach out to your marketing team. They might have some materials that you didn't know about, where you can get hex codes and RGB codes for your corporate colors to make sure everything's kind of staying on brand and can really wow people up the chain when everything looks and feels like it's part of your organization and not just kind of standard red, blue, green colors. You can tone it into the exact hex code that your company uses. And once you've used them on a dashboard, it saves them. So you can really build out a whole bank of custom colors on your dashboard, picking your different colors here, and you can keep referencing them so you don't have to type in that hex code each and every time. It saves them. I found the easiest way to do these buttons across the top too is you set them up on one dashboard, and this goes for a lot of things if you're kind of replicating the look and feel of across a lot of dashboards, is you set up all the links, the widget behavior here, so you're navigating to your different dashboards with the clicks. And instead of trying to do this over and over again, you can either highlight all these and copy them to your next dashboard, or even just, and I'm going to do this anyway as part of the exercise, is just save a whole new copy of this dashboard and build off of it, because that'll keep all of your custom colors as well in the color picker. So as part of this, I'm just going to duplicate this one, save it as new, and I'm going to call this Project Progress. It goes for a lot of things too. If you're building reports and you need a different report for each department, or a different report for a task list for all the various people on your team, rather than making each report from scratch, build one report that you like the way it looks, so you have all the columns you need. And if you just need to adjust a filter, just duplicate that report and just adjust that filter, and then all the columns stay the same width, and all the filters and selections of the different columns that are going to show up in that report, they'll all stay the same. You don't have to adjust that each and every time you make a new report. So copy paste is a magical thing. Duplicating things is really handy. So I recommend you do that as much as possible when you're making this. You can take a lot of the manual labor out of making your dashboards and your different sheets. So now I've made this one the Project Progress one. So I don't want this form here anymore. And I want to change this color of this dashboard hub widget. Reset that by accident. I'm going to change this back to the gray because that's not the one we're on anymore. We are on the Project Progress one. So I'm going to change this color to that blue with the white text and give a bit of a highlight to show that this is the dashboard we're on now. And then I just have to link up that one button because you can't link to open the Smartsheet item that you're already on, which we copied it from. So I just got to link it back to the dashboard hub. So this is what it looks like when you choose what happens when someone clicks this widget. You just have your little navigation, just like your workspace view. You just choose what you want to navigate to when you click it. Thus kind of completing that look and feel of being able to click between these different dashboards. And now that I've added the new Project Progress one, you just have to go through and do the same thing. Project Progress. Now that's a button there. So if you keep those buttons consistent across the top, it can make it really easy to navigate between different dashboards, or kind of give the impression of a drill down. That widget behavior selection is on just about every single widget that's in here, and I'm going to touch on that again here as long as I make sure I keep time. I got to keep pace here. Something else that I found is really handy, especially on things like a hub like this. You see how I have this form? This is actually a form that will submit into one of our sheets, so you can embed forms right on a dashboard rather than having to post links or share links to the form. This is a really nice way to do it, and they're interactable. Just put some test content in here. On my name, and you can set this up so it just reloads the form again. So if it's something where you need to submit again and again, it can just reload the form. Other things that you can embed, I think a lot of people don't use this feature enough because they're just not sure what embed really means, this web content. But you can do all sorts of different stuff, from PowerPoint presentations, Google Docs or Word type or Microsoft type applications, PowerPoint, Word, all those types of things. But you can also do things like Google Maps. So if you have a lot of location-based stuff that you can find under this share button here on lots of different sites. I'll show you a YouTube one too, but under that share button, you'll see this is the link you're probably used to seeing and sharing when you need to share a location or something, but there's this embed, and that using this link will actually make it interactive on your dashboard. So if you copy this, there's some choices here on what size you want. It just changes the size of the embed, but we can do so on our dashboard too. Just have to add content, paste that link in here. Now we've got an actual interactive map on our dashboard as well. As you can see, I'll hit save. I can zoom in and out, look around for that. Same thing with YouTube, another application that you can do the exact same thing with. So there's our share button again on YouTube. It's the video from the last session. So you can get an embed code from this too. And with YouTube, you actually have a choice of where you want it to start, which is kind of nice. So if you want to skip over an intro or anything, you can do so. And same way, just add the content, paste that link in there. And this is now a video you can watch without actually having to leave your dashboard. So if you have any video content or anything, it's a great way to do it. Start playing it right from here. Hey, that's me. Yeah, so that's embedding content, really handy. Lots of different things you can embed to make your dashboards, again, feel like you don't have to leave to get everything done. It's a really nice feature, and you'll be surprised to find how many different things you can embed. So if you have shared cloud storage like Box or OneDrive, you can embed links in here. SharePoint sites I've seen, and all sorts of different items there. Let's hop into looking at some financial metrics here. These are just some really basic charts. So this is just like a year-over-year revenue. If you want to see last year versus this year, I just have 22 and 21 in here. This is a nice way to lay it out. The way I laid it out in the metric sheet is just like this over here. So you just have your 2 years. It's going to show up in the widget just like it does in the chart here. So 2022 on top, 2021. I typically like to go descending order in years, but as you play with it, you'll find out. But it's pretty easy to move them around if you wanted to adjust the way it comes on the dashboard. But just month over month, different revenue numbers here, and I have them laid out like this. I think this could look a little bit better. So obviously playing with the size and scale of these things can help, but some things that I think a lot of people overlook too is on the series labels here. I have the choice, and you can kind of quickly navigate between which part of the series you want to adjust. So you can see if I click on the legend here, it also adjusts which one I'm choosing here, or you can use the drop down. Apply what you're doing to both or just one. So I like to do, for previous years, you can do a fill line, or even for current year, actually, you can do the fill line to show where you are. And then you play around with the colors a little bit, and you can really make this look a little bit better. So I like to use gray for the past years sometimes, just to show, hey, this is what we did last year, and then use the fill for 2022 or the current year to show where you're at. And hopefully, if you're looking for things like revenue and whatnot, your current year is higher than the previous year. So using those, and obviously a little bit of color psychology if you want to, for money, and you want to show a benefit. Greens, people like seeing green. Nice way to label that with that fill line. I think that ends up looking a lot better than just the two red and blue lines across. But play around with the little colors, and again, you do have the custom color picker. So where we used to be limited to only a few colors, and when you have a ton of different graphs and charts and things like that, you get a little lost in the colors when they all start to mean different things. Orange in this graph means profit, and orange in this graph means a person's number of tasks. You start to kind of lose that. So you can be really conscious of the different colors you use, and then as you go through the dashboard, you can always try and do, 2022 is always going to be this green. So everywhere you go, right here, fiscal 22, let's make it that same color green. You can start to kind of visually drive those indicators to help people understand. So that fill line is something that can come in really handy that I like. And something I wanted to show you as well, but I think it might be better if I do it on the project progress dashboard, because I have a widget that ties into this as well. Let's just open another item here. And I hope if you have questions, again, feel free to post them in the Q&A, and we'll try and tackle them here shortly. So in the project progress one, something that I found in the project world a lot of folks like is a chart of a progress bar. Smartsheet doesn't have necessarily a native widget to show a progress bar, but something that I've figured out how to kind of provide one anyway is with a really simple formula. So if you have your project progress, so this could be a cell link or a formula to figure out how much you've completed of a project or any sort of progress metric here. And then if you do it in percents, this formula, I'll just go to the metric sheet to show you. This formula is just 1 minus the percent completed to give you the remaining. So you have what's completed, what's remaining there. If I highlight these 2 cells for this widget, that's definitely not what I want to see. Actually, the donut can work really well for a progress bar too if you do it as a semicircle. So you can get the completed to slowly take over the remaining, which again, with a little bit of color psychology or guidance, you might just want to change the color. Completed, sometimes I like to see blue, sometimes people like to see their corporate colors or green or whatever you want to use. But this could be a progress bar that the completed slowly takes over the remaining. But another way to do it that takes up a lot less real estate is if you do a stacked bar graph. I gotta choose my chart type here. There we go. You do a stacked bar graph, and it starts to look more like a progress bar here. So if I stretch this out, it looks a lot more like a progress bar. I'll get my legend maybe at the bottom. I always recommend playing around with where you want the legend to be because it can really change the way the widget lays out within the frame. So top left, maybe you don't need one at all. I don't think we do for this, because what we're going to do is make sure we have the completed showing the value label here. And again, if you hover over it, it's always going to be there. But when I've done this before, people often get concerned because why does it go to 120%? Why can't I adjust this scale across the bottom? No one's going to want to see progress of 120%. They're going to get confused. So I found a little bit of a workaround here that seemed so obvious, and I felt like I had such an aha moment when I figured it out. You can't turn off the axis labels, but you can kind of hide them. So if you make them smaller, you end up with a little more real estate. You see that the size of the bar changes a little bit with the size of the font. But it's simple. All you got to do is change the font to white, and now it's just a progress bar. Get a little bit more real estate. And now you've just got how much completed, how much remaining, and you got a little bit of progress bar. So as that percent complete, if you're linking it to a project plan, as that percent complete grows, your completed will slowly take over what that looks like. And I can show you what that looks like in an actual project dashboard here. This is just a sample project dashboard, but you have your project progress here and shows you. It's a nice visual indicator how far along you are in your project. So all I did with that again is just use a stack bar and get the difference of how much your percent complete is versus how much you have remaining. I felt so obvious when I finally figured it out that all you have to do is turn the text white. As long as your background of your dashboard is white, you turn the text of your axis labels white, and they're essentially hidden from you. So I found that a really handy one. I think next we should look at using reports for charts or graphs. So I'm going to go into, I want to do staff metrics here. This one right here, my Greg's tasks here, this is being driven by a report instead of just highlighting cells in the metric sheet. Now the report I made is driven from the metric sheet, so I'm using this metric sheet here still too, and I basically have just said I want these columns right here, and then just filtered it down to just my name and what that looks like. I'll just hop over to the report really quick. I hope I'm not going too fast, but we got lots to cover here in a short amount of time. So here's where I've made Greg's tasks. You see, that's me. Here's the different statuses, and that drives this widget right here. So it always stays up to date. This is a really nice way if you feel like you have kind of static criteria for what you're trying to calculate on your chart here. Reports are a nice way to do it. They always just constantly stay up to date. Can make maintenance a little bit better depending on what you're trying to calculate. I just wanted to highlight that you can use reports. And if you have a report that has way too many columns, but you still want to report on it, you can actually choose which columns you want to include in your chart. So there's actually an additional one here, primary, just because of the way I have the metric sheet laid out. I don't actually need the primary one, so I just have that turned off, and I've just selected the columns I want. So maybe you have financial data that spans multiple years, but you only want, last year, this year, next year. You can just select those columns that you want out of this. And tying into what I was mentioning earlier, rather than trying to recreate each of these widgets and each of these reports manually, what I like to do, especially when you have kind of your sizing and you're happy with the sizing, your sizing and the colors and all that good stuff. Set my legend to the bottom though to make that look a little better. I think I'm happy with the way that's all laid out. What I'm going to do, instead of trying to, because you can't really resize things automatically in Smartsheet, you can't make sure that all these widgets are going to be the same size. But I have 2 more people I want to make this widget for, so I'm just going to copy and paste it. And this works between dashboards too. So if I wanted to copy it and open another dashboard in another tab, you can paste widgets from one dashboard to another. But now I just want to rename this to Amin's tasks. And to drive that, instead of trying to make the report from scratch now, like I was mentioning earlier, I'll just save it as new, call this Amin's tasks. All I have to do now is change that filter. So account manager, some people haven't realized, and it took me probably an embarrassingly long time to figure this out, but instead of typing in is equal to and typing my name, which opens it up to, if typos are wrong or something changes, or you want to add different criteria, you have to make sure that is equal to, you have this text box filled out properly. There is this option of has any of, and it takes everything from that column and turns it into a pick list. So this is a lot nicer way to do it. So I'm going to say this is now for Amin. There he is. Now I've got Amin's. Go back to my dashboard here, just refresh to make sure that this dashboard knows that new report exists. And I just have to choose that new report now. And the nice thing about copying is if you have a lot of workspaces, if you just copy a widget, it's going to pull from where you had the last one. So instead of having to navigate through all the collapsible folders and finding where the source of your data again, it's just going to be right beside it because that's where I copied the report. A little quicker to navigate when you're making a lot of dashboards or making them really big with a lot of different widgets. These little tips like that can make it a lot less labor intensive for you to get these things built. So I've selected that report now. You see I can't choose a range in the report. It's going to choose the whole range no matter what. But then we can do our column picker here. So I don't need the primary column. I just need account manager and the statuses, and then just change it back to the pie chart. A little bit of a limitation that it doesn't automatically always carry over all the formatting. When you change the data source, it kind of defaults back to what the default is, which I think is a column. But the more you do it, the faster you get at doing this stuff. It's just something you got to work through. And as feature requests, the more people submit feature requests, the faster Smartsheet prioritizes them. So if this is something that becomes a pain point for you, I highly recommend submitting a feedback or a feature request. You just do the little formatting touches, make sure it looks all the same. Now we have Amin's tasks too. Another thing in those reports, when you're duplicating stuff, and instead of having like if this is going to be kind of your collaboration center, or like you send your team to go to your dashboard to see which tasks they have overdue, you could have each person's task list here to show what's not started, what's in progress, what's complete. And then you can have a report here. And I think this got overlooked, but it was a really cool feature that a lot of people have put into good use, is there's a filter criteria. And I'm just going to navigate away from this for just a second. There's a filter criteria in building reports where if you have a contact field, in the filters, you can say assigned to. So that's my contact field. There's that has any of again to turn it into a pick list instead of typing in the person's name. but instead of picking a name, there's this option of current user now. And this is, I think Smartsheet announced it, but they should have really set off some fireworks for this because it makes things a lot easier. So whoever is logged in and viewing the sheet in Smartsheet or the report will only see the tasks that are assigned to them. So I'm logged in with my own account, my Greg Hobbs at Achievan account here. So these are all the tasks that are assigned to me, and I can verify that just by bringing that column back in. So you see, I only see the ones that are assigned to me, and that's the only other filter other than the status is not complete. So all my active tasks that I have to do. So that assigned to is really handy because now on the dashboard, whoever's logged in and viewing the dashboard only sees their tasks. So I see my tasks. I have 3 not started. I have 3 in progress. Here they all are right there. Now that's just a really concise view of the tasks I have to do. So with that widget behavior we were talking about before, I could open just the data source, which would, if I do that, it just opens that exact report we were just looking at. But sometimes, like I found this is really handy with project schedules. On the dashboard, you might just want to have a visual of the Gantt chart with just the project name and the milestones, like the really high level tasks or milestones. You only want specific ones, so you have your report filtered just to show milestones, maybe deliverables as well. But when you click on it, you want to go to the whole schedule so you can actually go maintain it. You can use that instead of just looking at the report. You can set up the widget behavior, open another Smartsheet item, and then we will just go to my staff task list. And now when I click on it, so I can see tasks assigned to me, I can click on this, and now I get the whole task list here where I can do my maintenance. Maybe I need to reassign some of them to Amin or Shweta, and it can maintain the list here. That same filter in the report where you can filter it down to current user, you can do so in the sheet filters as well. So if I look at the way this filter is set up, called it tasks assigned to me, shared to the group, so anyone can turn this on, and it's assigned to is one of current user. So again, whoever is viewing this sheet can turn on that filter and they'll only see their tasks, rather than creating a filter for each person. And then if they leave, you have to change their filter and reassign the person's name in there for the person who maybe replaced them. Tasks assigned to me works a lot better if you're using it kind of as a collaborative worksheet. Found that one super handy, and again, I don't think it went off with as many fireworks as it should have, because it's made things a lot easier in a lot of different ways. What else can I show you? The title widgets, they can be used not as titles, and this is another thing that seemed so glaringly obvious that I was embarrassed when I finally realized I could do this. When I was trying to find a nice way to break up sections of a dashboard. So I was using, I was trying to find just a picture of a horizontal line that I could use, but they would never really fill in properly onto the image widget the way I wanted it to. You don't actually have to have text in your title. You can just make a bar. So it's another one of those things that's super simple, but can make things a little easier to break things up visually on your dashboard if you need to divide things, if you're not doing that, the buttons to navigate you to different sections of the dashboard. So you can start to paste them. Again, copying and pasting is always super handy. So if you ever need a visual breakup on your dashboard, just use a title widget, stretch it out, fill it in with the color you like. Really nice way to do that. I'm just kind of going all over, but another thing to keep in mind, people like color, and when you have these pickers, you start to try and make color on everything, and it can get really noisy really fast. So it's good to start by adopting a less is more approach to the visual elements. So double check if you even need a legend first off, like we did on that progress bar. I don't think the legend was really needed because the visual indicator is just to see that progress bar grow, and then you could just have your % complete as a separate widget beside it as a metric widget. Same with titles. Often you want to fill it in with different colors because you have your custom color picker, you've got all these pretty colors in front of you, but a lot of the time just turning the backgrounds white And simplifying it can actually make things look a lot cleaner instead of having the title widget over everything with the highlighted the way we do up at the top here. And even show you what that looks like across the top here. Sometimes less really is more. So if you can simplify the look and make it look nice and clean, I would definitely start by limiting how many colors you have so that the colors still have impact, because if there's color over everything, it just starts to get noisy. So see, it could look a little bit cleaner. So just some things to consider when you're trying to make these things visually appealing. Go with less is more. Even if you want to soften it up a little bit. Softening it up with gray text instead of black can often make things look a little nicer too. Whoops, that's fill, not text. So even just a dark gray can kind of soften up the feel a little bit so it's not as harsh. Make things look a little bit nicer is something I've found. I want to show you again, we're going to get to Q&A here right away, so I have some time and I can hopefully set you all free a little bit early, because everyone loves a meeting that ends early. But something I also wanted to point out when you're laying things out, a nice way to do it, this is just a sample dashboard, so there's not a lot of data in here, but you can use the rich text widgets like this to give some instructions on your dashboard. So if you're struggling to communicate, what the intent of a widget is, or if there's special instructions like this one, this is using that My Tasks filter. So this is just like a disclaimer. If this report appears blank, it's because you have no tasks assigned to this one. So this is just a rich text widget that gives you a lot more options for formatting in the text, where title is really just a title. You can actually bulletize stuff and put hyperlinks in. So try and make use of these rich text widgets. They can be really helpful to give instructions or give links to external stuff that maybe you don't want to embed, but you want to make quick and easy for people to click between. I highly recommend using these rich text widgets, which is just right here. Other things like for shortcuts, I think I have shortcuts on here somewhere, maybe not. But if you're adding shortcuts, play around. Again, the main thing with Smartsheet is really play with it. Don't be afraid to click on everything. Try different layouts of different widgets. I'll just start clicking a bunch of these different dashboards here. So you can see this looks kind of plain. It can be really handy if you want it to be nice and tight and small, but something that might be a little more visually appealing is putting it as a stacked widget, centers it, and makes it look a little bit nicer. And know that you can always change what the text is under here. So if I just wanted to say a means board, rename it, it doesn't rename the artifact, but it can make your widget on your dashboard look a little bit cleaner. So if you have big long titles but you want a little more concise on your dashboard, but you don't want to actually change the source file's title, you can rename text on your dashboard, which always comes in handy. Same with when you're adding metrics, like this is just grabbing a number. I'm going to show you right here. Again, this is using a metric sheet, but at the project level. If you get into using Smartsheet Control Center, this stuff all gets populated automatically and makes life a whole lot easier for use cases like a PMO. Automatically provision the projects, automatically you only configure one, what they call a blueprint, rolls up all this data into your metric sheet once you've configured it, and everything's replicated. So when a new project comes up, you essentially have to do 5-6 clicks to provision the project, and you've got all your data automatically rolling up. But I wanted to show you, if you start choosing metrics in a metric widget, I'm just gonna choose these 4 right here. But I think to have it in a metric sheet, that it's going to give me the column name as data. So I can either rename this to be, cost to date, forecast, whatever these are, you can do that. Or maybe like I did right here, you can see that there's the title of that metric here, but I just left it blank and I used the title of the widget to label it instead. So you can actually just delete these, save yourself some real estate, because when I save, it's going to kind of compress that a little bit more. So you can delete those titles. Again, one of those things where it's hard to see that little tiny X, or you might think if you delete that box, it's going to delete your whole metric. But just know that hover over everything, click on everything, there's a good chance you can edit more than you think. It's just like these little dots. I overlooked these for the longest time. I was trying to put the metrics into the widget in the right order, not realizing I could just shuffle them around with this sorting box right here.